Hello and welcome to another edition of Football Express. I'm Stephen Looney. Joining me in the studio today are Chris Morgan and Mark McIntosh. Both very welcome. Thanks for your company. As ever, we'll do a quick recap on recent results in the Sports Direct Premiership. Last Saturday, March 15, Ballymena United 1, Cliftonville 0. Carrick Rangers 0, Glentoran 0. Crusaders 1, Loughgall 1. Linfield 2, Glenavon 0. Larne 1, Coleraine 1, Portadown 1, Dungannon Swifts 1. Then on Tuesday night, March 18th, two important games. Coleraine 2, Cliftonville 2, and Glentoran 2, Larne 2. Looking ahead to the Sports Direct Premiership fixtures this weekend. Saturday, March 22nd, Coleraine versus Portadown, Cliftonville versus Carrick Rangers, Glenavon versus Larne, Glentoran versus Crusaders, Loughgall versus Ballymena. And on Monday we finished the games before the split with a game between Dungannon Swifts against Linfield at Stangmore Park. And Chris, I have it down here. Blue is the colour, taken by David Healy and his Linfield players on winning the Sports Direct Premiership for the 57th time in the club's history. Blues clinched it, as we know. They didn't have to kick a ball because Glentoran didn't beat Larne. So with a 19-point lead and just six games to go, Blues can't be caught, become the first team to win the league before the top six split. We're going to give congratulations and drill into it. Well, I'll ask you, your sentiments on them winning the league. First of all, so early, but I think we were talking off air, and you've won the title in sort of similar.
Yeah, the first time it was 2000. It was the first title Linfield had won for maybe 6 or 7 years, and yeah, I think it was 1st of April. Won it early, led from the front in exactly the same manner, and won it by losing on the day that we won it. We lost up at Coleraine, but the Glens drew or lost to Distillery, and yeah, we won it. So won it early. Similar to albeit that was in the days before there was a split. But it's unusual for a team to win it so early. It's not unusual for a team to win it without kicking a ball. We've seen that so many times. Especially I think in England you would tend to see that. I remember United winning it a few times without playing. But I mean it's not great, I don't think, from a league's perspective, from the league's perspective in terms of people looking in at it, that a team has won it so convincingly, and ultimately the split has been brought in to create excitement at the end, and Linfield are going to play their split games with the benefit of when they'll not care. They don't care what the optics are. Ultimately, they set out to win the league at the start of the season. It's an incredible achievement to win it so early, and it's testament, I suppose, to their level of consistency, as opposed to the other teams that have just not displayed any of that.
Thanks for that, Chris. Going to come back to you in a second. Mark, congratulations to Linfield. Tell us how they did it this season.
I think as Chris said, it's just the level of consistency. I don't think Linfield have been free-flowing and, lots of goals and, easily the best defence and all of that. I think it probably says a lot about their rivals that Linfield have won it so early. But look, Linfield are certainly deserving. The one thing David Healy's teams are, yes, they can lose a game. They very rarely lose two on the bounce. So, they always hit back straight away, and not everyone's capable of that. They've missed some key players as well. Let's be honest, even the likes of Matthew Fitzpatrick got quite a lot of abuse earlier in the season for not scoring a lot of goals. Where David has been fortunate, of course, is Joel Cooper's form. And for me, I think, we all knew in December that Joel Cooper was signing for Coleraine in the summer, and that could have gone one or two ways. He obviously buckled down, and him and David had all their conversations, and he scored a lot of goals between then and now when the title's done. But it could have gone the other way. The fans could have got on his back and everything. And I'm glad that didn't happen. But look, Linfield are certainly deserving of it. You don't win the league with 6 games to go if you don't deserve to win the league. But my problem with it is I keep being told how this league is getting better and better and better. I don't see that. A lot of people hammer this Linfield team, rightly or wrongly, and to win it with 6 games to go, I think it just says a lot about the opposition. Nowadays, I think all these teams are a lot probably fitter than teams were before. I don't see the quality anywhere near the same.
Bringing it on from that, I'm going to widen it out a wee bit now. I'm going to ask you one thing. You're talking about the rest of the teams maybe not being up to the level of challenge in Linfield. What would have happened if David Healy had have left for Scotland?
Look, it's hard to know because you don't know who comes in. You don't know what ideas they have. You don't know what they would have done in January or even since then. So it is hard to know. But I think a lot of Linfield fans, whilst even now they've won the league, Linfield fans are complaining maybe that, it isn't what they see as a vintage Linfield team. To me, as long as you win the league, I don't really think it matters. But some people are complaining, and sometimes you just have to be careful what you wish for. Because there will come a time when David Healy has had enough. I wouldn't be massively surprised if it was this summer. If he just thought, you know what, it's probably a nice way to go out. He's won the league. He's got the Gibson Cup back at Windsor. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think it will happen this summer. But I think it's going to be a big, big call for Linfield when that day comes. Because, yes, there's added pressures now because there's more money involved in the league. There's more challengers, or we would have thought there were more challengers. And I think next season there will be. I think that's why Linfield have done a lot of business in January and since. I think they knew the league was probably going to be okay for this season, but it's next season's going to be the issue because you'd expect Corrine to come. You'd expect Glentoran to make more signings. Larne will come back with a bang, I'm sure. So I think next season's the big one. Linfield have to keep David Healy.
Thanks, Mark. Go back to the team, Chris. I think what I've admired most about Linfield this season is how David Healy and his players and staff have coped with adversity. And I think they have had adversity. I think they've dealt with it better. Before Christmas, for sure, they had a horrendous injury list. I remember watching them at Dundee in the League Cup, and it was like the walking wounded. The guys were coming off, limping off, stretchered off. Also, Mark mentioned the Joel Cooper situation could have blown things off course. Certainly on his level, he could have maybe looked out, lost his focus. He didn't. He had a goalkeeping situation as well, where he dropped Chris Johns, or Chris Johns made a mistake, and David Walsh came in and has done nothing wrong since. But these are things that could have upset the apple cart. I'm going to put it to you, Chris, as well. Is it fair to say that other clubs have been in transition this year in terms of a high turnover of players, or like in Lauren's case, of managers going, Crusaders managers changed, Cliftonville high turnover players as well, Coleraine, we know. Is that a factor at all? Like, what I'm trying to say is, do we give Linfield credit?
Linfield's form, they would have won the league anyway. I mean, I'm just looking at it and trying to sort of work out why they've won it so early to a large degree, just in preparation as we're going to talk about it. And if you look at their actual performance in terms of points and take their average points per game, they would have won the league. It's league winning form. The surprise is that it's not like they haven't been beaten and maybe drawn a couple of games, and they've been so much ahead of other teams that they've won it this early because they've been so good. It's been league championship winning form, but it's not been blazing everybody apart type form. And that has to be on the other teams, that nobody has been able to just put any level of consistency together. And one of the probably most important things has been Joel Cooper. Joel Cooper's form from the start of the season has been unbelievable. I think then that it almost appeared that he went up a level whenever the news broke that he was signing for Coleraine. You've got to give, I guess, Joel a lot of credit in that. You've got to give David Healy a level of credit there, because some managers might have taken the approach that, well, I'm not going to play you. I don't know, I guess none of us know how those conversations went between the two of them personally. But it's worked for them. They've resolved to win a league. Joel Cooper's probably been the best player in the league. He's won games for Linfield on his own at times, and his performance has been a huge part of it. I guess when you look at the overall, I mean, Linfield have been really good, but you've got to really put question marks against the other teams, and you're making that point, Mark. You made the point teams will come strong again next year. I'm not sure who will emerge. There's a lot of talk about Coleraine. They've they will be, I guess. They've signed Joel Cooper. They've made other high-profile signings. I'm not sure who else. Larne, there's still a little bit of uncertainty with managers. The Glens seem to get so close and then sort of a wheel comes off and they go again. So I'm just not sure how next year will start to look.
I think Linfield have been fortuitous in one aspect, in that Larne qualified for the champion or for the group stages of European football, and inevitably that took its toll. I think there's no doubt about that on their domestic campaign. So I think Linfield got a bit of a benefit from that. Had Larne not been involved in Europe, would they have challenged as well as? I'm not so sure, but certainly they would have been very much closer, I think. So now let's flip it. Chris, what would have happened at Linfield had Linfield not won the league this season?
Listen, David Healy has been a brilliant manager. I mean, we've made the point here. He constantly seems to be under the microscope, and he's constantly having to fight off criticism from lots of people inside, or certainly on the periphery of Linfield, be it supporters or and then everybody else involved in football seems to have an opinion on him. I think his record is incredibly good, that he's able to put that to the side and just continue to do his job. Would they have changed him? I guess that would have been that moment where another year without a league title, maybe questions would have been asked, but the reality is it's irrelevant now, because he's stepped up, and it's that thing about that sometimes, I guess, is that how you categorise really great managers, that they can lose, and Linfield have lost for a couple of years, but then they can go and build another team and win. And I mean, you're talking about, it's not a vintage Linfield team. And when Mark said that earlier, my first thing was, well, sure, there's never a what is it? Because going back to whenever I played, it was, this is an average Linfield team. This is not a great Linfield team. Still winning leagues. Still
Who was
winning.
saying that?
The blue man amongst us here. He was the one.
No, but do you know what I'm saying? I mean, back then, who is it that's always saying, "Oh, this is hardly a vintage"? It's the Linfield family.
Well, it's everybody else too. Like, everywhere I go,
Yeah.
I'm told that's the worst Linfield team ever.
Yeah.
It's not just believe me.
This seems to be a narrative that follows Linfield around for whatever reason, and I'm not sure where it has come from. But at the end of the day, when you look at the league titles over the decades, Linfield generally win 60 to 70% of the titles in any decade, but they're full of rubbish teams.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
Explain that to me. I mean,
it's
there's
nonsense.
something that is inherent at Linfield, that they just know how to win, and that is that key ingredient, is that this is the thing that other teams have struggled with over the history of football, is that consistency. And that's just a term that's thrown out there. What does it actually mean? But it's just being able to put the message across to people in a way that you get the best out of them. Would you rather have a player who is 7.5 out of 10 and you get consistent levels of performance from him week in and week out, or would you rather have a player who's arguably 9 out of 10 but you see him one game in 4? Linfield are just able to put teams out that deal with the pressure of winning, and that comes, I guess, from being at Linfield. I don't know how or why or what, but it exists at the club.
I've said it before in this show, Linfield teams down the years know how to grind out results, and that's a phrase that David Healy hates. He thinks it's a criticism of his Linfield teams. To me, it's a massive praise for Linfield teams, because no matter what, no matter how their form is, no matter how they're playing in any game, they know how to grind out results.
I think it's probably my take on that. That feels like a negative if you're saying they're grinding it out. There's times where you can win games by managing the game in a way that you take your opportunities, you defend when you have to, you keep the ball to stop the other team getting it, eliminate their chances of scoring. So it's probably the terminology around that frustrates people, because it sounds like a negative. Well, of course, but it's not like you have to do it. You can't win a league title grinding out results every single week. You've got to be. The reality here is that they're better than most of the teams that they play against.
But everyone always talks. See, when a team wins a league, everyone always talks about there's maybe that 1 or 2 results. It might be a late goal or something that, you always talk about 1 or 2 results at the end of the season. That's the games that you've ground out. That's the games that you might win 5 or 6 and people remember those as outstanding performances and everything. But it's those games that you do have to manage well or grind out.
I think, in fairness, to Linfield being the biggest and the most successful club in the land, they would want to be winning titles without being accused, or not accused, being labelled as grinding it out. I think this season that Linfield have, on occasion, many occasions, ground it out because of the adversity they faced, because of the injuries they faced. We've had David having to play players here, there, promote from the youth ranks. It's because of that I give Linfield credit, and undoubtedly give, and David, for the resilience.
Well, one other person, like, we very rarely would give credit to a chairman, but Roy McGivern at Linfield got a lot of criticism when he stuck his neck on the line, and he did everything he could to keep David Healy at the club in August instead of going to Wraith Rovers. And it was him that pushed the new contract and everything. A lot of people were furious about that. That kind of meant that they had to win the league. Because Roy's neck was on the line as well, so I think he deserves quite a bit of credit too.
Anyway, elsewhere, I want to ask you guys as well, if there's other business to be done. I have it here, one more round of games before the split and the title business sorted. There's huge pressure still remaining for top 6 finish. Glentoran, Larne, Dungannon assured, leaving Crusaders, Portadown and Coleraine fighting it out for the remaining 2 positions. The Bandsiders and the Ports play at the showgrounds, while Crusaders play Glentoran at the Oval. And the Glens have their own fight with Larne to finish second, and that's it's massive. They're 3 points ahead of Larne. Larne play Glenavon at Mornview. So we know the 2 teams. I'm going to ask you first of all, Mark, for second place, which guarantees you European football, which is Glentoran would take your hand off for it. I think Larne need it as well. It's just massive for both clubs. Did we learn anything from last night's game about who's going to finish second, possibly?
I think what last night's game showed me are Larne still have goals in their team. Their strikers score goals. They didn't look like scoring the first half against Glentoran at all. But when you have Andy Ryan and Paul O'Neill, they can pull you out of a hole. I look at Glentoran and look, Joe Thompson's been a great signing. We know he scores goals from midfield. He gives them a bit more as well. Complements Sully very well, all of that. But Glentoran in attacking positions worry me. I just don't see where they're going to get goals unless Jordan Jenkins scores one from 20 yards or something like that. I worry. And they've started to they're not falling apart. That would be far too cruel on them. But I just don't think they're showing their best at the worst possible time. And I think Larne will gain a bit of confidence. And like I said, I think the likes of Andy Ryan will score goals no matter what.
Thanks, Mark. Indeed, Chris. I kind of thought maybe Larne had their more vulnerable period a few weeks ago. I thought maybe things, knocked out of the cup and all that. I thought, not the wheels would come off, but I thought they could be blown off course. Chris, what do you see now? I told you about the 2 games on Saturday. Talking about Glentoran and Larne now. Larne go to Glenavon. Glentoran play Crusaders at the Oval. Do you fancy any of them at this stage, or is it neck and neck? Bearing in mind that Larne are 3 points behind with 6 games left.
The thing is, neither of them are in incredible form or even good form. They're a bit patchy, and it then becomes difficult because you're generally going to pick a team because you see the potential, you see the form that they're in. Both of them are, as we've stated there, they're both probably not playing at their best. So it is difficult to say you really fancy one or the other. You'd almost see a scenario where one of them stumbles over the line because they don't drop as many points as the other. That potentially could be the way it's decided. And on your point, I I really like Jordan Jenkins. He's a player that I think he's a victim of how football is played now, in that he is. 20 years ago, he would have been a second striker alongside somebody else, and he would have been, because I constantly see him being questioned, not good enough, and I look at the amount of goals he scored. I think to go back to that point, I think it is a little bit of a victim of how teams are set up now. If I had Glentoran, if I was there in a sort of staff position, not that I will be, but I would be looking, well, how do we get the best out of him? Because he's a natural goal scorer. He is somebody that can put the ball in the net, there's no doubt. And unfortunately, as we have bemoaned all morning, football's changing, and we don't like sometimes what we see. Can you find a way to play with two players up front? Everybody wants to play with extra players in midfield so that they can dominate the ball and pass the ball backwards and sideways and not go forward. And if you were managing Glentoran, you would be just banging it up front to a big man in Jordan Jenkins and saying, get it up there and let Jordan Jenkins score goals.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but no, I mean, we are talking about, how do you... There are question marks around, can they put the ball in the back of the net? Will they have a natural goal scorer there? There's no doubt about that. Does he come with some flaws? Yeah, but so does every player that's playing the game. We're not saying, we don't see too many players in any levels of football that are perfect. Can he play as a one on his own in a 4-3-3? It's not going to get the best out of him. But he is an outlet in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net, and you would try to find a way to maximise that. That is the difficulty now, that the way the game is played is that other teams will then potentially dominate the ball against you.
The one thing he's very good at is the hardest thing to do.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So
it's like Joe Gormley, we said at the start of the season, he's getting older, but he just knows how to score goals.
Yeah.
Give him the ball.
Joe would have
point him towards the net.
Joe, whenever that transition started to happen away from 4-4-2s, where he developed his goal scoring. He didn't develop, but he had it. He became a player in the league alongside Liam Boyce, where it was a two. When it shifted, where Joe was playing more so on his own, he wasn't as effective for a period of time. And now it's gone back to he's probably developed a little bit more as a player, but he's just got that instinct to score goals. He's unbelievable. We've seen it 2 weeks ago in the cup final where he knows how to hit the net. To me, okay, maybe not exactly that level. Jordan Jenkins has the same ability.
Glentoran and Larne now the race for second place. We know the Glens are 3 points ahead. Do you fancy one or t'other?
Look, like I said earlier, I think Larne can score goals from more positions, but the fact that the Glens are 3 points, I would rather have those 3 points in the bag. As Morgo rightly said, neither of the two of them are in blistering form, and I don't really see them going on a run of winning, every game between now and the end of the season. So I would rather have those 3 points in the bag.
The top six: Coleraine, Portadown, Crusaders. And I put it to you, just for debating, that Coleraine are the team in form.
Yeah, I mean, they've certainly picked up results in recent times. Good signings, shrewd signings.
Starting to come together now, maybe?
Yeah, and look, it was always going to take a bit of time.
Yeah.
And they might click just at the right time. I think it would be wrong not to mention Dungannon, obviously. Look, massive congratulations to them. We've all been waiting for years for the top six to have a different team in it, and what Dungannon and Rodney Macquarie in particular have achieved is nothing short of remarkable. And
still in the Irish Cup semi-finals as well. Could be even better.
It could be a dream season for them. But look, again, it's fascinating. There's a lot riding on these last games at the weekend. I have to say, for what Portadown have done this season as well, I would love to see them secure top six. Niall Curry, rightly or wrongly, takes a lot of flack in terms of, he loves signing players, and he maybe signs 14 this summer and 7 of them are away before they kick a ball, and all of that. But I think he deserves immense credit for what he's achieved so far this season, because I don't think many people would have predicted Dungannon and Portadown being in the top six. So I think for what they've done this season, and we've probably thought of them as a yo-yo team for too long, I would love to see them secure top six.
So do you think they will, though?
It's going to be difficult. Look, see, when it comes to this, you've got one round of fixtures now. I think it's a toss of a coin. I really do. But I agree with you. I think the fact that Coleraine are showing a bit of form, I think, class might tell in the end. And I think, Coleraine could be the ones that get themselves in there.
I'm just looking at teams, Chris, who will have thought they shot themselves in the foot. Crusaders, they 1-0 up against Loughgall last Saturday, 86th minute, concede one, Benji McGee, good goal. On Friday evening it was like a funeral at Seaview, Everybody thought that was a chance it's gone, but then the later results sort of helped them a little bit. Cliftonville didn't do themselves any favour on the day either, losing at Ballymena. So Crusaders are playing Glentoran at the Oval, as I say, and Coleraine playing Portadown at the Showgrounds. I'm not sure the Crews will win in East Belfast, and if they don't, that leaves them vulnerable.
You look at Crusaders, there's a level of transition there as well, and you made the point with new manager coming in, probably slightly change of approach as well, and that going in and taking that job is a massive task for anybody, given how long Stephen Baxter had been in post. And I think you probably look at it and say that there's a level of credit, because I'd say Declan Cadell has learnt a lot this season. There's been moments where it's been quite good for them, and then they've had tough moments. So he will be better for that come the end of it. It's hard to categorically say any of those games the result or how the result's going to fare out, because the one thing that is apparent in this league this year is that there's such a level of inconsistency, and you actually just don't know what team is going to show up from week to week, really, other than Linfield. Dungannon probably have been there's been a consistent level with them, more so maybe than others, but it has been a little bit like the choppy waves for most teams. You know, they've been good, bad and indifferent. You're probably really in that toss of a coin, as you say, cup final moment where it's one game, winner takes all scenario, and it's, you know, I'm probably just not going to try and predict it because it is so difficult to get right.
For the club who finishes 8th, you know, they're not going to have that European playoff to think about. So if Cliftonville finish 8th, it's all eggs in the basket of the Irish Cup. You know, they have to get to the Irish Cup final and retain that to qualify for Europe, because let's be honest, that's probably more important than most things in the league now. It's the money European football brings.
Looking at the bottom 6, you'd have to think that Cliftonville will be disappointed, Ballymena will be disappointed. And can I also ask you, Mark, it's kind of as you were at the bottom, Loughgall are 12 points behind Carrick, who in turn are 12 points behind Glenavon.
Loughgall are gone. Carrick will finish second bottom and face the playoff. That's just exactly what's going to happen. I think a lot of times it always favours the Premiership team. You know, over 2 legs, I would think it favours the top flight team. But the Championship is so competitive this season. I think it could be a tasty playoff.
I mean, the Championship took a little bit of a turn in the fixtures in the last couple of days, where the Welders beating Bangor. I think most people would have thought Bangor were nailed on to come straight up. Still probably in the box seat, but Carrick will to potentially face one of those 2 teams. It'll be two really tough games, and Carrick, again, you look at the investment that has gone into that club, really can't afford not to be in the Premier League.
Thanks, guys. It's almost everything wrapped up. Just want to ask you, Chris, if you don't mind. Linfield have won the league. You want it. Tell us what's it like. What'll Linfield like? What'll it be like around Linfield at the minute? Well, the boys have been on.
I often talk about football now that I'm finished playing, is that, and I've gone back in where I'm now involved. You know, initially when I went back in, it was coaching at grassroots level, and I started to actually see the game for what it was again, and start to, you know, enjoy it, love the game, and I kind of then, you know, surmised that when you play, you get 2 emotions: disappointment and relief. Disappointment when you lose, and relief when you win. So where's the enjoyment in it? You know, and that's how it becomes at that level. The game it's all about, and especially when you're at a club like Linfield, where, you know, at times we'd have maybe won a League Cup, and it was Tuesday night. You know, boys just go home. It's like, we're training again. You know, the focus is so on results. So where the enjoyment maybe comes at the end of the season, when you can reflect, but then the message comes very quickly. It's all in the past. You know, we go again come pre-season. So that's how and rightly or wrongly, maybe I'm being overly hardened over the years of looking at how the game is at a sort of professional level, and that's how I've surmised it, that it's disappointment and relief, which doesn't sort of sell it particularly well, does it? So that, you know, it's certainly how I felt, how it became, and started to see that whenever you go back and you deal with young players, and you're starting kids on their journey of playing, and they play because they love playing, and that's where the beauty of the game comes out, and that gets lost a little bit along the way.
Just finally, which title did you enjoy most?
Either the first with Linfield, where we talked about earlier, where we were so far ahead, or the one with Glentoran.
Okay. That's allowed, Chris, you know, it's quite allowed.
You can enjoy more than one, can't you?
Of course you can, indeed, of course you can. Okay, Chris.
Or be relieved.
Brilliant, thanks, great insight. Mark, as ever, brilliant to have you on board. Thanks to the 2 of you for your time, your company and your conversation. Okay, my thanks to the guys. That's it for Football Express. This time, Linfield are the champions, but there's plenty more to discuss before the end of the season. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Football Express.